Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. All right, I'm here with Brian at the Woodman Museum in Dover, New Hampshire, which is the founding place of the Ninja Turtles, and they have a great unveiling at the Woodman Museum. I assume you've gone to see the gallery already?
Yep.
How is it? I haven't taken a look yet.
It's got a lot packed into that little room. There's a lot of Kevin Eastman signatures and art there, which is really cool to see.
That's one of the signatures actually missing from this tray. I have a few of the other artists and not Kevin, but I have some other things that he signed at my house. But the TV tray, I think, is one of those things that just like pretty much anything else with the Ninja Turtles name slapped on it is part of their legacy of like that time period of, you know, kids sitting in front of the TV, playing their video games, having their snacks, and conceivably all of those things could be Ninja Turtles related. And you selected a thing just now that you would think music, especially music not about the Turtles, but from the Turtles, like when they first came out, you wouldn't imagine that, but they did do it, right? Did you have any Turtles albums?
Oh, I had a tape of the coming out of their shells.
Yes.
The shells. That tour, I never saw the video until recently. It's one of those things that I had the tape, my grandma gave it to me or something. So I really liked that when I was a kid. And I still remember the songs. And then when my daughters get into it now, we revisited it on YouTube, and I was like, it was great.
Wasn't there one called like Stepping Stones?
Yes, that's the one I remember.
It was a ballad. It was like Stepping Stones.
Yeah, so dramatic, and not really like the show at all. But it was, I don't know why that song specifically, I connected with that and remembered it forever.
It like stayed with you, like through like various moments in your life. You're like, oh yeah, Splinter told me that there'd be times like this.
Yeah, I remember sitting in my bedroom, like listening to that on an old tape player. It's so funny.
I think we were probably doing it simultaneously. So I think I got that for Christmas one year, and you know, I should have gotten the one we're about to talk about. But you know, when you look at the video of that on its own, it looks weird. But we have to remember that throughout that time period, from the late '80s, I would say probably until the turn of the century, that was pretty standard entertainment for kids. That they would take. I remember seeing the Muppet Babies live. You know, I didn't see it, but I remember being advertised, like people dressed up in, you know, basically the cartoon that you're watching in the morning on Saturdays transformed into a stage show, and they would tour these things around. And actually, I think maybe you've seen the same documentary as I did, but there's that very funny comedian he was on MTV's The State, and then a show called Viva Variety.
Oh, yeah. And there's two guys from that. It was Michael Ian Black.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Ben Garant, I think his name is.
And they did they were like the vanguard for the traveling tour. So they would dress up in the costumes and do promo stuff in whatever city that they're going to hit next.
Yeah. As
the Turtles. And
really cool.
It's like by that point, countless people had worn these suits that the original actors in 1989. By that point, they had made them a lot easier to move around in. But anyway, you chose a cassette tape from 1997 of A Very Turtles Christmas.
Yeah.
And the question I chose to go along with it is, why did they make it? And that's, you could take that question a lot of different ways, but what's your first gut reaction, gut instinct of why they made that when they did?
It's interesting that I chose that, because in 1997 I was in 7th or 8th grade, so I was beyond the age of Turtles, so I didn't even know about this.
I don't even think they were hyper popular anymore. I think they had faded.
They fell off the radar. But this past Christmas, we were getting into the Turtles. We saw Mutant Mayhem in the summer, and it like reignited this flame of the Turtles for me, and my kids are into it, so I'm like, okay, let's do this. Nostalgia. And we watched the Turtle Christmas special on YouTube, and it's just so... It's not super well produced. The songs are kind of weird.
So I assume this tape is the companion to that, then.
It must be.
You know, unless they made several.
If they did, I want to know about it. Because we watched the old special on YouTube, because we couldn't find it anywhere else. And it was just so strange and funny and kind of not great looking. But I don't know, something about it just felt fun, you know? Like revisiting the Turtles, and that kind of... The stakes were really low. Like, it's not a new thing that like we're paying to take the kids to an event or something, and we want it to be good. There's no stakes at all when you're just watching it on YouTube.
And in a way, in 1997, that may have been the way that they looked at that by making it. That the entire property didn't, rest on the success of this. By that point, they're like, yeah, let's do it, whatever. We got the costumes, we got the, we have people that can perform the music. Let's just do it and add one more layer to Turtle Mania.
Yeah.
I don't know if my understanding is that the creators, Kevin and Peter, kind of there was a rift between them based on that kind of thing. That Peter wanted to keep the property as true to the original as possible. Kevin was all right with the cartoon iterations and being like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have, new characters and weirdo, stuff like that. And I'm assuming by 97 that they'd probably already kind of...
Yeah, I feel like probably... I've read some of the old comics and some of the, they had write-ups that go along with them in the old collections and stuff, and it kind of seemed like in the early-ish 90s, they were starting to kind of go their separate ways, and Kevin moved out west or something like that and started pursuing other opportunities. So it kind of became like a business thing, I think, by 97.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I haven't watched it, but there's the 2003 animated series that I think Peter Laird had a bigger role in. So that's more honoring the original series.
Yeah,
so there must have been a period between when the original cartoon was so popular, the 87 cartoon, and 2003, where things just went crazy. And that's probably why this happened, because they were just such a big business, able to make anything and they could profit from it. I think that's got to be the motivating reason behind this.
And I guess that's why whoever published it was perfectly fine with doing it. My question is, were they in their costumes when they went to the recording studio? Or if they just because if you can actually listen to this entire tape on Internet Archive.
Okay,
I love Internet Archive. They're so wonderful because they are like other archives and libraries, but they're different in that they started in the internet age and they collect from that standpoint. So you can find entire movies and TV shows on Internet Archive, and in this case, entire tapes of audio, and listen to each track one by one. I wouldn't be surprised if all they did was just record it off the TV special and slap it in a tape. And
maybe.
What's interesting, though, is that even making a cassette tape seems almost like a waste of effort in 1997. I got to think that almost all of us had moved entirely over to CD.
You're
by
right.
that
I
point.
probably had a CD player then. That's a good point. Yeah. Maybe that's another reason why I chose it, because I haven't handled the cassette tape. I don't know since when. Probably mid-90s, I guess. So just seeing something with the Turtles logo on it was kind of like instant nostalgia, even if I don't have any specific connection to that to that particular product.
Thank you. Don't worry about it. It's like that thing got angry. That was like we're talking about it. We're like, oh, not nostalgic enough for you. I'll just jump off this table.
No, that thing's why I walked over here. I was trying to see. Actually, is the top left signature, is that Peter Laird?
Yeah. So he
cool.
was, I think we got this one kind of piecemeal. So for listeners, this is a TV tray, Ninja Turtles TV tray. And they had these for like all the different, they had Mario Brothers and He-Man and, pretty much every kid-centric cartoon, they would have one of these. But I forget how we obtained it, my wife and I, but being here in New Hampshire, there's plenty of times when they've come back and do signings and stuff like that. So we've been fortunate enough to get some signatures on there and a bunch of other stuff too, which, I feel like the 90s, late 90s was kind of a lull for Turtledom. It wasn't quite the huge, everybody talking about it kind of thing. And so, there might be a CD of this same thing, but it may have also just been like, because it's kind of like those Kids Bop things. And the younger audiences don't always have access to the next level technology.
Right.
So they might still very well have the tape player that they inherited from older sibling.
That makes sense.
That was being used in the 80s. Maybe, it'd be fun, Teddy Ruxpin with this tape in it, singing Turtles Christmas songs. But, I did one of these on Analytical Conversations on a Kids Bop CD from the mid 2000s and maybe even the end of the 2000s. And we were talking then, well, this is easily in the age of MP3s. This is easily in the age of downloading music off the internet. Why are they making it a CD? Well, it's again the audience. The audience might not have access to a computer.
Oh yeah, big time. My daughters, before we started letting them access, tablets and phones and stuff, we had a CD player and we would give them CDs.
Yeah.
We still make them now.
So much more control over what they're listening to and what
they
they're
don't have
accessing.
like ads or access to the internet or something. So there's it makes sense that what you were saying about like a younger sibling or something could have access to something older technology because it's kind of like safer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if all parents are thinking like that. Maybe they're just saving a few bucks. But
right. Or maybe they're vehicles, because another place that I could picture, I can't, maybe a Walkman might pop this into a Walkman, and listen to it, and that's much more personal, easily I think the cars that were made throughout the 90s may have also had a tape deck. There's always like that overlap period.
Yeah.
Like the vehicle I drive was made in 2015. It still has a CD player on it.
Yeah,
It has Bluetooth, but it also has the older.
Yeah, same here.
So there's like overlap of technology. So 97, it was tapes were still around. They just weren't being sold by volume. I don't remember the record stores having. All they had was CDs by 97.
Yeah.
I don't remember tapes at all coming into it. But for the younger audience, that's probably why they made it in tape version. And maybe it came as a package. Maybe you got the VHS of.
Oh, I bet there was some packaging. Yeah, they do that with the Turtle stuff, big time.
Especially in that era. So what does all this tell you? I mean, we kind of figured out about technology in the 1990s. Is there any other layers that we can kind of chip away at? Does that tell you anything else about that era that we could, potentially, make a pretty solid claim about late 90s? I know both of us were alive in that era, so
yeah, it's hard to think about.
We can say it with somewhat of authority, but for somebody learning about like America at the end of the 20th century, is there anything that this would highlight or indicate?
I'm trying to think what I was doing back then. I don't know. I do feel like it's interesting to think about the difference between the CDs and the tapes, the cassettes, because we had like a lot of technology that everybody was accessing, including kids.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's obviously much beyond that. But there was, I remember having my own tape player as a kid, and it felt special.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's something, I mean, maybe this even goes back to the 80s where like electronics were becoming big for children. Gee, I don't know before the 80s, maybe even before then, but there was something where it was like we had lots of plastic things that had electronics and batteries and stuff.
Wasn't there, I remember it being pretty popular, it was like a portable radio cassette player, but also had a microphone.
Yes.
For like early podcasting, like 1988 version of podcast, that, was for, that was geared towards, it was like a play school thing, I think it was, or Fisher Price, maybe Fisher Price. And, so it's like, it's kind of almost like a shot in the dark, though, when, because if the thinking is we want our kids to become capable and, they know their way around technology well enough as they grow up, but you don't know what the next step is. So you can only teach them from what already exists, and that's the stuff that's affordable enough that if a kid drops it, it's not the end of the world if they drop a $10 tape player versus a $100 CD player.
Yeah, that's kind of like, at the time, CD players probably were feeling pretty expensive, and then we moved on to expensive MP3 players.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody has phones. It's just kind of built in.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that it makes me think of that too, like the transitions that we were going through with technology. It's like the tape kind of symbolizes that, like, because it's right at the end of tapes, probably.
Right. And a very rapid,
so
transition. I feel like, if I recall back to, as we were nearing the end of the 20th century, turn of the century, everything 2000, excitement, 2000, that they were talking about, well, CDs are going to be completely irrelevant soon, which did become pretty much true. But they were like, it's all going to be mini discs.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody said that with all certainty, like right around that time, like mini discs, no more CDs. I'm like, so something that you can lose a lot easier and potentially step on and ruin forever. Like, at least cassette tapes had that. And VHS, their video companions had a similar thing too. I just saw a funny meme the other day celebrating VHS, and it said, if you scratch it, it's not going to stop working.
Yeah.
Because it's a plastic box. It doesn't skip and then stop working altogether. It doesn't, like a DVD, go back to a menu. You can fall asleep watching a VHS. It's not going to wake you up in the middle of the night with an endless audio going on of the menu screen. And if you stop it and then forget about it for 15 years, it will remember where you left off. And I'm like, the same thing with the audio tape. Like, you can,
that's kind of
it
cool.
Almost like leaves a marker in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Conceivably somebody may have even could tape over. I know there was ways if you put, like, I think, Scotch tape over certain parts of a pre-recorded cassette tape, you could tape over it yourself.
Oh.
And someday I will find, hopefully I find them first, countless like news reports and things that I made myself. Like, somewhere is, because I had a recorder, a tape recorder, and I swear I would just spend like hours like doing stuff in it. And like, I remember doing like the Fresh Prince theme into it one time, and they're like, and I'm on the scene, I'm like doing like news stuff. And
oh, cool.
I hope I find it before anybody else does, because I'm like, that's just weird. But I think we did a pretty good job with just this one tape. I mean, I don't know if you still have it up on your phone, but if we look at some of the song titles, it looks like they wrote music specifically for this.
Oh, yeah.
It was all originals,
there's
right?
another podcast, the Turtle Tracks podcast, that is like all turtle stuff. It's hosted by this guy whose name is Brian Van Hooker. Not to promote another podcast, but
no, it's fine.
He interviews all turtle people. And he interviewed the person that wrote the music for this. I don't remember her name, but she's apparently a very prolific children's book writer.
Oh, really?
Like, she's done lots of stuff for like the Dr. Seuss family of books and stuff. I wish I could remember her name. But she wrote all these songs, and there's an interview with her, and it's just very interesting. This
really
is just,
good.
This is just a project that she banged out, I guess. Or
yeah, I guess if you know how to do it, and
it's interesting to like hear this kind of the silliness of this, but then think like, yeah, I guess somebody did put some care into these rhymes.
Yeah.
And stuff. So yeah, I can read some of the song titles if you want. The first one's "We're the Turtles."
Okay.
Just kind of introducing them. That's only a minute long. These are all pretty short, 1 to 2 minutes. "Deck the Halls," "Up from the Sewer,"
a Christmas classic.
"Gotta Get a Gift." I think that was kind of a quicker one. This one I do remember. "Oh Little City of New York." I don't remember which turtle sings it, but he sings it in like an operatic way. It's very silly. The whole thing is silly. "Rap Rap," which is the first rap is WRAP.
Oh, I see. Look at that.
And you know, it goes on from there. I would say the best one is We Wish You a Turtle's Christmas, the title track. That one's nice and fun and easy to remember. There's a lot of songs on here, though.
Do they go to the tunes of existing recognizable Christmas songs, like Oh City of New York? Is that like Oh Little Town of Bethlehem?
Yeah, Oh Little Town of Bethlehem, yeah. There's the 12 Days of Christmas also on here. Let's see, what else is...
So she probably banged that out in like a weekend.
There's a lot here, yeah.
They're probably just like, hey, could you do a Ninja Turtles themed Christmas album? She's like, yep.
I don't remember this one. There's one called Don't Talk to Strangers.
Good advice any time of the year, but...
And I also don't remember On Top of the Pizza, but I'm imagining that's similar to On Top of Spaghetti.
Unless these are extra tracks that you get as your reward for buying the cassette.
Maybe I need to listen to this later today.
I mean, this is also the era of soundtracks were sold and purchased along the same lines as regular albums. So while this isn't anywhere near the movie from a few years before, you know, this is the same year as Titanic, so this may have rivaled Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On."
That's funny.
You know, for sales, but it's like people would shop in the soundtrack section of the store just as much as they would shop elsewhere, because a lot of times there would be, you know, because of that huge marketing that was MTV and was pop radio. You know, when "Kiss from a Rose" came out with the Batman Forever soundtrack, right. It was. The video played at least once an hour. It was on the radio every day. They played it, you know, at weddings that summer, I'm sure. You know, everywhere. It was "Kiss from a Rose." You could buy this single on tape or in CD. I remember the first time I
heard that song. I was on my school bus, like...
The bus driver was singing it, right?
I was starting middle school, and I just stuck in my head. I remember that moment.
Isn't it funny how that, just like if you were to find a tape that you listened to back then, it would start right where you left off.
Yeah.
It also unlocks a memory for you. Like you hear the song, you're like immediately put back onto your school bus, and that's awesome.
That's really that's another one. I guess that was a formative time in my life for sure.
Yeah, no, I think
Turtles weren't even on my radar.
It is very much. I mean, that's why this is called Your History Through Pop Culture, because we all, you know, these things, especially for those of us who've grown up in the latter half of the 20th century into the 21st century, almost, I would say, at least 60% of our daily life is shared by the rest of the globe. Even there's almost like a whole culture across the. So we all have our own little markers in a way associated with it. Like we remember where we were when we heard something or saw something the first time, or, you know, talking about it with our friends the next day after it was on TV and things like that. So I really appreciate you talking with me today, and I hopefully you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm surprised we kind of went down this interesting, I'd say a rabbit hole, but maybe it's a sewer.
Sewer
manhole.
Sewer manhole. It always happens, and that's why I love doing this, because I get to meet nice people such as yourself, and you know, just as everything's a primary source, everyone has a story, and thank you for sharing yours.
No, thanks.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you're listening to it now, and follow Everything is a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.